Hello and welcome to my gluten and dairy-free experiment. I've reintroduced gluten and dairy for a period of about 5 months now, and I'm ready in this chapter to actually start drawing some comparisons between the different settings and the different approaches I've been using. So I've actually just come to the point where I'm more or less ready just to give up eating gluten and dairy because I'm actually feeling fairly dreadful, and you'll see in my results that the decision was pretty much straightforward. So I'm going to talk about my compliance as I often do. I feel like I've been making a pretty solid effort to actually maintain a healthy lifestyle, but over the last few weeks it's just become really apparent that I've had to go back to the other way of eating, and I do what most people do in that situation, where I basically just ate whatever I want to do for a period of time because I know that the upcoming period is going to be quite strict. But I'll jump into the results now across, because I can compare 3 different areas and I'll run them along the bottom of the screen. But the first period was my baseline, where I ate gluten and dairy, didn't do much exercise. The second one is where I gave up the gluten and dairy, and the third part is the most recent period where I resumed eating the gluten and dairy and added heavy exercise to the equation. And basically, without hammering on the point, every single measure that I took was at its best when I wasn't eating gluten and dairy. So as those results run along there, I'll just talk through some of the other observations that I've had. So it's probably important to note that I've never been as strong as I am right now. In the gym, I've actually been able to lift 1,000 pounds in combined total for my powerlifting, deadlift, squat and bench press, which I've never been able to do before. I have been working quite hard. However, I don't think my scale truly reflects what's been going on. I think I've gained a little bit of muscle, but I think I've gained a fair bit of fat as well, which you'll see in the pictures. I'll use the video transition tool to compare the stages. First eating gluten and dairy, now gluten and dairy free in a relaxed pose, then reintroducing the ingredients with some exercise. The effects are even more pronounced when I'm deliberately posing. My stomach was much less distended, but I removed the 2 ingredients. Upon reintroduction, it went right back to where it was before. Finally, the relaxed pose from the front, looking much more slim without gluten and dairy, and then finally reintroducing the 2 ingredients. So something else I've noticed is I've had a lot of heartburn in this period, and to me that's a pretty good indication that my digestive system isn't working as well as I'd like it to be. In terms of my dreams, the intensity has petered off quite a lot, and I'm suspecting that that does have an implication between neurotransmitters. I felt like I was resting more deeply without eating the gluten and dairy. I did go to the doctors and I did blood tests and so forth, and nothing was out of place really. I had low inflammation levels, my vitamin levels were good. The only thing that really came back was that I'm a bit overweight, and I'm going to try and go back to what I was doing before because it seemed to be an effective way to helping me lose weight where other things hadn't been. Probably though, to sum up, the biggest observation I've had is that I just feel like I've been slowly poisoned. My energy levels are really low, I feel slightly depressed, my mind feels unclear, I feel sluggish, I just have this tendency to be unmotivated to apply myself to tasks, and it seemed to be a whole lot better the way I was doing it when I gave up those 2 ingredients. When I'm trying to do an interpretation of this, it's actually challenging. I can't really directly take any measures to know the full story of what's going on, but I do get a sense that the 2 ingredients, gluten and dairy, have an effect on my metabolism that just compels me to eat more calories than I need to. I suspect there's a pretty complex interaction between the metabolism, your gut flora, and also I suppose just genetic factors as well that make this effect apparent. I don't think everybody would respond the same way, but I certainly have. I'm starting to suspect as well, and it has been put out there in the literature, that these ingredients do stimulate pathways that are associated with addiction, because once I start eating these ingredients, there doesn't seem to be an end point. I just want to keep eating more beyond the point where I would normally stop eating other foods. The other thing I've noted though, and I think this is more of an approach thing, is that the effects appear to be very gradual and cumulative. So I had quite a significant grace period when I resumed eating gluten and dairy before the ill effects became apparent. What this means to me is that you need a longer period of time to be able to fully evaluate the results. I've seen people online have test periods of 10 days, 2 weeks, and for me that just wasn't enough time to be able to fully evaluate how helpful this approach was. So in summary, every measure that I took was much better when I gave up gluten and dairy. That to me is enough reason to cease consuming these two ingredients. So this is going to be my last installment for a while. There's really only one logical place to take this now. I'm going to stop eating gluten and dairy and continue with my exercise levels, see how that goes for a period of about 6 months, continue doing my measurements, and then release another update seeing how I progressed. Thanks very much for watching.